Do you think we'll see a heavy dose of Christian Gonzalez, who, by the way, congratulations, NFL Rookie of the Month. That was announced earlier today. Do you think we'll see a heavy dose? Huh?
That's not a real award.
Will you stop? Give the guy some credit, will you?
I'm just telling you. We never talk about those awards because they're not. Nobody knows how those awards come up. It's the NFL Public Relations Department that comes up with them.
Give him credit, Greg. So
I said he's been great.
I know. Do you think we'll see a healthy dose of Gonzo on CeeDee Lamb Sunday?
This is the Greg Bedard Patriots Podcast with Nick Cattles.
No, it's Cowboys week, Greg. Everybody's talking about this game. I think it's a game, before we dive into the details, where if the Patriots win on Sunday, man, oh man, does the narrative change, the expectations change. A lot of things could change if the Pats win. First, though, of course, I got to tell you, FanDuel, our friends, episode brought to you by FanDuel, the exclusive wagering partner of the CLNS Media Network. New customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed, as Chuck Barkley says, when you place a $5 bet. All right, Greg, before we get into the ins and outs of this football game and the details of it, first, let's hit some headlines as we always do. The injury report. So everybody was on the field yesterday, Greg, including Devon Godchow. Pretty good sign for the guys, huh?
Yeah, I think, all the way around, both with, what happened with them. We know Ekawale went on injured reserve. We'll talk a little bit about that a little bit more in a second. But, everybody was on the practice field. That's good news for the Patriots. The Cowboys had bad news. So, combine those things, good news on both fronts for the Patriots. I mean, Barmore, Jonathan Jones, City So, Cole Strange being on the practice field is big. Godchow, I'll be interested to see how his week goes. I think we talked a little bit about it earlier in the week. From what I understand, this week might be tough for him. This was a good sign. Usually what happens is in the first practice, go out there, test it, see how it responds, and then you sort of go from there. But, I mean, I think there was some hope that he could play this week. It would certainly be big if he can, but we'll have to monitor that situation. The Cowboys, CeeDee Lamb and DeMarcus Lawrence were out, not injury related, but a big thing for the Cowboys offense is, three of their better offensive linemen, they did not play last week in their upset loss to the Cardinals. Tyler Biadasz, the center, Zach Martin, of course, probably the league's best guard, or certainly one of them, and Tyron Smith, who, is getting up there in years. This is what they do with him. It's a weekly, you don't know whether you're going to get him. When he's out there, he makes a huge difference for this team. He's not the elite guy that he used to be, given all the mileage and the injuries, but, you could easily see on film the trickle-down effect of not having those guys. I mean, imagine the Patriots line without Trent Brown, David Andrews, and Michael Wenu. Not good. And so predictably, Dallas wasn't as sharp as they could have been last week. Some of that was on the offensive line. Some of that was other reasons, which we're going to talk about. But combine the two teams, good news for the Patriots on the injury front.
Speaking of offensive line, Patriots, Cole Strange, he was out there on the field during practice yesterday. Of course, we discussed him earlier in the week, Greg, and you've made the rounds, my friend. Boy, have I been inundated with my friend Greg Bedard. I saw you on Felger and Maz after doing the pod with you. And then I saw you on NBC Sports Tonight talking about Cole Strange. And then I happened to pop on John Rook's Patriots playbook yesterday. As I was doing some work, and you're on there too. It's like this is the everybody's talking about the Taylor Swift tour. The Greg Bedard tour is in full force.
Worldwide Greg.
So
move over
ratings
Worldwide
are going
West.
through the roof.
Yeah.
So Cole Strange, we talked about him earlier in the week, and the fact that he didn't play well. He looks like the same guy that he looked like last year. Could we see something happen with him? First, I want to ask you, have you gotten any more information as far as could it be injury related? And secondly, is the door open for Antonio Mafi on Sunday?
I don't have any more information on, whether his struggles are injury based. I mean, I think we can surmise that considering, what he went through in training camp, and also during the game against the Jets, it was clear and obvious that he was dealing with some sort of injury. He was working with the training staff. So, there's some part of that. I think this gets into a situation where, and Bill Belichick has to deal with this every week, with a player coming back from injury. Hey, is it better just to wait and let them get more healthy? That sort of thing. And I think that's definitely in play here. And like, how much are the Patriots losing? If you're looking at a 70% Cole Strange versus a 95% Antonio Mafi, a 5th-round rookie, what are you really losing? And some of it might have to do with how they want to play this game. And we'll talk about that when we dig into the Dallas defense and what the Cardinals did against them. Is this a game where they just want to be a power team? Could be. Is this a game where they want their most athletic offensive linemen on the field to get to the second level against the Cowboys linebackers? Yeah, that could come into the equation too. So there's a lot of things at play going into this game.
All right. One of the things that you and I have talked about, I've been saying this the last couple of weeks. I think you've been saying it as well. Pop Douglas. I mean, you look at the first week snaps. I believe he played 33. I think he gave him a Larry Bird 33 in week 1, I believe, as far as snap count. Second week, obviously, he was benched because of the fumble, which both of us found ridiculous. And then last week, he played 17 snaps. Is this the week that Pop Douglas is actually given an opportunity to play 25, 30, 35 snaps? And also, could we see Ty Montgomery, who has been on the back of a milk carton when it comes to this offense through 3 weeks?
Yeah. Good question on both fronts, Nick. I think that it depends how the Patriots want to attack this game. And, we'll dig deeper into what Arizona did against the Cowboys to sort of bludgeon them on offense the way that they did. I mean, it was very impressive. And one of the things that the Cardinals were able to do with guys like Rondale Moore, with Hollywood Brown, speed, they were able to match Dallas's speed. Dallas is extremely fast on defense, and having those two guys on the field and in different places, like Rondale Moore's lining up at running back, even though he's really more of a receiver, it just led me to thinking, watching the film, I'm like, the Patriots could do some of these things if they put, Pop Douglas here, if they use Ty Montgomery on third down. Of course, there's the whole Zeke returning to Dallas. So, are they going to play that up, which would minimize Ty Montgomery started last year as the third down back, and, he was okay until he got hurt in the first game, and then he was gone, and now he, like you said, he's on a milk carton. I mean, the only time I see him really is rushing field goal blocks, and he's all over the special teams, which is awesome. Yeah, wonderful. And, watch, he'll block a field goal this week, and then I can get blawed to death. But, the case can be made that if the Patriots liked what they saw on film from the Cardinals, that they say, we can do some of these same sort of things if we try to get our fastest team on the field. And for me, that means Pop Douglas for sure. And, sprinkle in some Ty Montgomery. Those guys, I think have some value. And for a very slow offense, I'm all for putting more speed on the field.
I used to have a segment on my show in Sacramento when I was out there. Big deal or no big deal? Zeke Elliott is returning to Dallas this week. Zeke says, look, it's just another game to me. That's what everybody says when they're about to play their former team. It's just another game. Well, most guys say that. Some actually tell you the truth. But it did come out this week that, Zeke, he pretty much wasn't really given too much of a great goodbye by the Cowboys. Just kind of an afterthought. Just like, see you later. And there wasn't much talk. What do you think this means for Zeke coming up this weekend, especially coming off of last week's game, which I think all of us would agree was Zeke's best game so far as a Patriot? He had at least a little bit of burst. What do you think we should expect from Zeke as far as emotions go, but most importantly on the field? Is Bill Belichick going to give Elliott an opportunity here to do some work against his former team?
I bet he does. I mean, that's Bill's track record. He loves to give the former players a chance to stick a little dagger into their former team. And I expect that they're going to do that. I mean, you look at the Cowboys, they miss Zeke. I mean, Tony Pollard's really good. No complaints there, but they are sort of missing a, short yardage, goal line, red zone type of guy like Zeke has been to the Patriots. The Cowboys are one of the worst red zone teams in the league, and I think that Zeke could help them in that respect. And I do think he's going to be highly motivated. I do worry about players being too geeked up and trying to do too much, and I think that Zeke's at that stage in his career where he's limited by his body. He can't do the things that the great Ezekiel Elliott used to do. He's now average Ezekiel Elliott, and you worry about him trying to capture past glory. I still think if he plays within himself like he did last week, he can absolutely be effective and have a great return. And I do think it's going to be a major storyline in this game for TVs. I mean, it's not on Taylor Swift level, but I think it's pretty big, and I think that he'll do a good job. I do worry about him being a little overexcited, but you look at this team and how Dallas can be picked apart a little bit. And I do think that the ground game is going to have to be key for the Patriots. And I do think that they have the ability to do some things in this game. And I think they're going to need both backs, Ramondre Stevenson and Ezekiel Elliott, to really, if they're going to win this game, both of them have to eat a little bit.
You touched on the red zone area. The Cowboys are the fourth worst team in the league in the red zone, converting 40% as far as touchdown rate goes once they get into the red area. Zeke, the last 2 years for the Cowboys, had 70 combined red zone carries. So he was the guy. They got inside the 20. They gave that dude the football. And so you have a thing where, Zeke is now obviously no longer in Dallas. So you take away those 70 red zone carries, 35 a year. You're trying to figure out who's going to get those carries. Pollard's not a big guy. Dowdle's not a really big guy. They're a kind of a smaller speed athletic team. So in space, they can do some damage. But, once you get in the red zone and things tighten up and teams get physical, you have an issue. On top of that, Greg, Dak Prescott, he's just not running nearly as much as he did before the fractured ankle. He's a different guy after the ankle injury, and he's uncomfortable running. They don't call runs for him in the red zone very often. Now watch, he'll run three into the end zone this weekend, but they haven't done that. Dalton Schultz went to Houston. Schultz was the guy. He was the pass catcher that received the most red zone targets last year. So he's gone. And I've got an amazing stat for you before we get into more details about this game coming up. Dak Prescott has not thrown a touchdown to a wide receiver in 16 consecutive quarters.
Wow.
Kind of crazy.
I think we need a new segment. Nick's amazing.
But I mean, that's nuts. So they have trouble when they get to the red zone of finding CeeDee Lamb and those other receivers because they're just not big dudes. They can't box people out. They're not necessarily 50-50 ball guys physically. So I think that'll play a big role in Sunday's game.
Snap into action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. I love those little suckers, those little bonus bets. It's like free money. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/Boston and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. What if there was an app that used AI and machine learning to suggest smart sports bets? There is, and it's called Odds Are. It is a mobile app you need to know what bets of the day are smart ones. Download the app, sign up for an account, and let the latest data analysis guide you through today's point spreads, money lines, and over-unders. I just did it. It's easy. If you see green, that's a smart bet. If you see yellow, you're on your own. If you see red, don't do it. Odds Are doesn't take your bet, it makes you better at it. With Odds Are on your mobile phone, you're a tap away from making a smart play. It's smart betting made simple. Find Odds Are app in the App Store or on Google Play. Get a 2 free week trial it's just $10 a month after that. But hey, listen to that. That's for the usual people, the normal people. Listeners to this podcast, the Greg Bedard Patriots Podcast, you actually get a special deal. Get your first 30 days of the app free. Just go to oddsr.com/Bedard to download the app. That's oddsr.com/Bedard. 30 days of smarter betting free. We'd call that a winning bet. The casinos and sportsbook want you to bet. OddsR wants you to win. Go get it.
All right, so Greg, let's jump to the Cowboys now and talk about that game against the Cardinals last weekend. Did Dallas, I've heard this from some people, oh, well, Dallas just overlooked Arizona. They took Arizona lightly, and that's why they got beat the way they did. Do you think Dallas just overlooked them, or was this Arizona actually with a good game plan and did things that gave Dallas legitimate trouble?
Well, I would say a little bit of both. I mean, when you have 13 penalties for 107 yards, and a lot of them were pre-snap, dumbass stuff. Obviously, your team's not on their mental P's and Q's. There was a lot of discipline issue up front on the Dallas Cowboys defense. I haven't watched the Cowboys to know whether that was a 1-week aberration where they just weren't reading their keys right, or just didn't study enough, or this is like who they are and the Cardinals just exposed them. But I will say this. I'm not all that familiar with Jonathan Gannon and his new coaching staff in Arizona, but I got to tell you, one of the first things I did was I Googled who the hell is the Cardinals offensive coordinator. And because they did a lot of things. I mean, this was, how do I term this? This was, I would say it's, Josh McDaniels-esque in terms of, taking what they see on film, the weaknesses of a defense, and totally tailoring their game plan from start to finish to expose Dallas. And a lot of what to me, what separates this, and you'll hear guys like Chris Sims say the sort of the same thing. And I think, Chris Sims' podcast is, unreal. And I'm glad I watched the film before I listened to him, but we share basically the same opinions on a lot of things, but it's certainly on this. The best play callers are the guys who set things up. And Josh McDaniels was very good at that. Bill O'Brien does it, has started to do it more where, like last week, the 13 personnel stuff, they were building to that, and that led to the 58-yard touchdown pass. And the Cardinals do a lot of the same thing where you'll be like, oh, well, they're in this formation again. And people will see on BSJ, because I did a lengthy video breaking down some of the deficiencies in the Dallas defense in this game. And there was one part where I was like, oh, they're running this play again. And then you're like, oh, no, but they did a little wrinkle off this. And that's similar to how the Patriots got their touchdown with Pharaoh Brown. So you see a lot of that stuff repeated on film with the Cardinals. And I had to look at the offensive coordinator. His name is Drew Pitzing, a Middlebury guy. Shout out to Middlebury.
Yeah, Middlebury.
Yeah, assistant coach at BC and Harvard. I'm not sure whether he's a New England guy at heart. But he cut his teeth really. He comes from the Norv Turner. He served under Norv and Scott Turner in Minnesota for a long time. He was Kevin Stefanski's quarterbacks coach in Cleveland the previous 3 years. And I got to tell you, their game plan. I mean, we know they're not the most dynamic team in terms of talent. And you look at the Patriots and you're like, oh, well, can they do sort of these types of things? I mean, Josh Dobbs is their quarterback. I couldn't tell you how many of their offensive linemen I know. The tight ends that I see, not that great. Of course, James Conner, the running back, is good. They have Hollywood Brown, but he's not that great. Rondale Moore, sort of like a reject from other places. But man, it was a beautiful thing to watch. Now, the big question is, So how did they do this to the Cowboys? There's a couple of things that you have to know about the Cowboys. Number one, they are a very fast defense. Number two, they're not the most disciplined team. So the Cardinals did a great job of moving them one way or the other. They would get them going one way, pin them in. They would pull guys behind. the Cardinals also did a great job, and this is where I wonder whether the Patriots can do this, and I'm hoping for a little bit more Demario Douglas. If we see a lot of Demario Douglas, this is them lifting from the Cardinals and using it against the Cowboys. The Cardinals do a lot of motion, similar, not quite to the extent of the Dolphins, but they do a lot of that stuff. Motion back and forth, pulling guys, play fake this way, fake the reverse this way, then dump it down. Like, there's a lot of cool stuff happening on their offense. It's extremely well coordinated. And I thought that you combine that with they use Dallas's speed and over aggressiveness, especially at linebacker, Van Esch, and the other dude. Sorry, I'm just looking it up right now. I just had it here. Van Der Esch and Damone Clark. Those guys were horrible in this game. Micah Parsons, they used sort of like his aggressiveness against him. They did sort of the Philly read option thing where you're reading Micah Parsons and trying to go around him. So, the Cardinals beat the crap out of the Patriots. Their offense beat the crap out of the Dallas defense. The worry for the Patriots is that the Cardinals just showed Dallas everywhere where they're vulnerable. The Cowboys are not very good inside on the defensive line. They're very small. Hankins, a Vegas reject by McDaniels, stinks. The other guy, who, by the way, is now what I just figured out how you say his name, and it's now one of my favorite names in the league. Osa Odigizua.
Oh yeah, Odigizua.
Odigizua. Yeah. Love that name. Not great on the interior. DeMarcus Lawrence isn't, the guy he was. So, long story short, there's a lot of things that the Patriots could do, offensively against the Cowboys. They have it in their wheelhouse. It's going to take a high level of execution like the Cardinals did. Josh Dobbs was extremely efficient. He was like 17 of 21. Ran the ball well. He's not that fast. Mac can do some of those things if needed. So, do I think they can copy exactly what the Cardinals did and use it against the Cowboys again? No, because Dan Quinn, the Cowboys defensive coordinator, I'm sure got out after all those guys, and they're like, there were a lot of edge issues holding the edge. Sometimes they didn't have anybody on the edge. That will change this week. They will work on it this week in practice. But I do think there's going to be a lot of opportunities for the Patriots offense to do some things in this game. They're just going to have to be on top of their game.
Question I have for you, because I've heard, as you just said, the Cowboys, they'll look back at the film, they'll figure out what the Cardinals did, what was exposed. They'll address those things this week. My question is, do they have the horses to address the issues? Like, I'm sure Josh Uche knows that he's not good at containing the edge against the run. He's not consistent. He's had issues with that, right? Mm-hmm. But inevitably, it's not his game. Do the Cowboys have the guys? Like Micah Parsons, if Micah's instinct is get downhill, which it pretty much is. He loves making plays in the backfield, whether it's, sacking a quarterback or a tackle for loss. He loves being uber aggressive, using his freakish athleticism and getting into that backfield. Is it going to be easy for a guy like Micah to maybe not play as aggressive, or do you even want him? You know what I mean? Like, we could sit there and we could say, yeah, those problems were exposed, but how many of the problems, Greg, that were exposed by the Cardinals can actually be corrected versus, well, that's who we've got, and we can't necessarily make, those guys in the interior defensive line any better. They are who they are.
Yeah, great question. A couple of things. I do think the Cowboys had a few huge busts in the secondary in this game that I think can be cleaned up, because like a lot of it is like Stephon Gilmore thought he was in cover 3. There was a lot of like, am I in man or am I in cover 3? Like dumbass stuff. So that stuff can get cleaned up. I think the Cowboys are extremely small on the defensive interior and can get shoved around. That's why maybe this is a Mafi game where he's a little bit more powerful instead of Cole Strange, where you just try to bludgeon the interior of the Cowboys defense to death. I could see the Patriots doing that, doing a little inside-outside type of thing. If I were Dan Quinn, after seeing what I saw on film, I think he probably watched the film and said, we got a little bit ahead of ourselves. Like, we were feeling ourselves from the first couple games. We're getting all this pressure. Micah Parsons is going nuts. And our ears were pinned back way too much. We got to dial things back. If I were Dan Quinn, I would say we're not gonna do any of that stuff. We're gonna bring that stuff back. The special Micah alignments on where he's gonna be and coming from the second level. We're only gonna do that in certain situations. For the most part, we're just going back to our 4-3. Make sure we're setting our edge. Make sure we have our run fits right. Because, Nick, I can't tell you how many times that the Cardinals, with their different movement and pulling guys, where they would have like 3 or 4 Cowboys defenders like together. And you're just like, wow, they don't have anybody out there to defend the run. They're all messed up. So to me, this is a week where the Cowboys just get back to fundamentals, just playing solid defense. And if they need to pull out some cool stuff and risk a few things, they do that if needed. But look at who you're playing. We're playing the we're playing the Patriots. Let's not expose ourselves. We don't need to give them easy yards. Make them fight for everything, because everything comes hard for them. Don't make it easier by being too aggressive. And knowing Dan Quinn, and this is a guy that I've covered, he was on the Dolphins coaching staff. I've known him for years. He's an excellent coach. I think they're going to go back to basics and start from there, and we'll see. I don't know. DeMarcus Lawrence should be able to set the edge in the running game. He should be able to kick somebody's ass. Maybe not Trent Brown, but maybe Vidarian Lowe on the other side, and then let's see what they have on the strong side. That sort of thing. But I do think if the Cowboys go back to basics, I think that's better for them. It's probably a little bit worse for the Patriots. With the busy fall season already in swing, you might be looking for wholesome, convenient meals for jam-packed days. Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal kit, can help fuel you up fast with chef-prepared, dietitian-approved, ready-to-eat meals delivered straight to your door. You'll save time, eat well, and stay on track with your healthy lifestyle. First of all, I got an email saying, be on the lookout for it. When it was delivered, it was ready to go. You could tell that it was fresh. These guys know what they're doing. Too busy to cook this fall, but want to make sure you're eating well. With Factor, skip the extra trip to the grocery store and the chopping, the prepping, the cleaning too, while still getting flavor and nutritional quality you need. Factor's never frozen fresh meals are ready in just 2 minutes. So all you have to do is heat and enjoy and get back to crushing your goals. This was my favorite one, loaded bacon shredded chicken with sauteed spinach, green beans, and ranch sour cream. This only has 650 calories. I got the keto option to keep with my diet. There are so many options over there. Basically anything you want to do in terms of dietary restrictions, they can do it. You got to check it out. Head to factormeals.com/Bedard50. That's code Bedard50, BEDARD 50 at factormeals.com/Bedard50 to get 50% off.
All right, let's talk about the Cowboys head coach, Greg. Mike McCarthy, we are all well aware of Mike. I'm not a big fan of Mike McCarthy. I don't think he's a very good coach, but he is not only the head coach, now he's calling the plays. Kellen Moore, see you later. This is a Mike McCarthy offense through and through. You're the Patriots. You're looking at McCarthy. What's the plan?
So the plan is stop the run. If Dallas doesn't have those 3 linemen that didn't practice yesterday, we'll see how the week goes. The plan is stop the run and make Dak beat you from the pocket and change the different looks and stuff like that. Because I just don't. I don't know how you feel about it, Nick, but I've never been overly impressed with Dak. You can't just let him feel comfortable. That's for sure. If he feels comfortable, he's going to wait. He's going to find, CeeDee Lamb's eventually going to get open, that type of thing. When he's had his healthy line and they're really good and you can't get any pressure on them, that's when Dak and the Cowboys offense is really dangerous. They had protection problems in this Arizona game. I don't think Dak's very good under pressure. If you get him off his first read, and that's the thing, obviously everybody knows I covered Mike McCarthy for a while. I've watched his offense for a long time. It's not very creative. It's sort of old school West Coast. There's not a lot of motion. A lot of it's old school West Coast, which means shorter pass patterns, get the ball in the hands of the receiver quickly, yards after the catch. Think of Greg Jennings, think of Donald Driver back, when the Packers offense was popping. Even some of the stuff with Aaron Rodgers, early on in his career. That's the bread and butter. And so if you can, and I can see the Patriots with their coverage being able to do that, especially if they get Jonathan Jones back this week. I'm clamping down on those guys early. I'm keeping somebody over the top of CeeDee Lamb, and I'm getting Dak off his first read. But first, you got to stop the run. If that, Mike talks a big game about the run. I mean, just in this past game, Nick, the Cowboys, when you look at it, Tony Pollard, 23 carries, 122 yards. They rushed 185 yards, 5.6. That's really good running. But, Dax has, 40 attempts, only 25 completions, only 249 yards on those 40 attempts. So, not a very good yards per attempt average. Mike talks a big game about, he'll talk a big game about wanting to rush 50, 60 times in a game. It's freaking bullcrap. None of these West Coast guys want to do that. They love their pass game. They think the pass game is an extension of the running game and all that crap. Mike likes to set up the play action, things like that. So you got to stop the run, make Dak feel a little bit uncomfortable, get him off his first read, his primary read, and then after that, he's pretty easy to defend.
If you look at what the Cowboys have done offensively, they have run the ball a ton early on overall in the first 3 games. How much of that was having a lead? Obviously, they blew out the Giants in week 1. They had to play against the Jets in week 2, very much like the Patriots. I'm sure they weren't shaking in their cleats about Zach Wilson. So that game was what it was. But the one thing that does stick out is kind of in a similar way of the Patriots, long drives. Dallas, 9 play drives, 11 play drives, 13 play drives. I was looking, I was reading The Athletic this week, and they kind of mapped out some of those drives against Arizona. So death by 1,000 paper cuts. It's just for them to score, they got to have 12 play drives. And on top of that, what we mentioned earlier is the red zone offense hasn't been very good. So now you're taking all of this time driving down the field, which means you're not going to get as many possessions as you usually do because you're going 12, 13 play drives. And then when you get into the red area, you can't finish those drives. So I can only imagine, Cowboys fans are probably incredibly frustrated watching this offense at times because it takes them forever to get to the red zone. And then when they get to the red zone, they don't pay it off. The Patriots, when they get to the red zone, they pay it off. They just can't get to the red zone as much. That's kind of how these teams work. Dak, it's interesting. I saw Andrew Callahan post this earlier this week. I think Andrew does some great work. And, he looked back at the game in 2021 and the Patriots forced Dak to be patient and Dak played really well. So that goes hand in hand with what you were saying, Greg. If you give Dak time and you force him to be patient, that almost feeds right into what he wants to do. So I do think you got to get him off his spot. And since that fractured ankle, again, he's not the same guy mobility-wise. I don't think he's extra comfortable running with the football or moving around too much. So I agree with you on that. Do you think we'll see a heavy dose of Christian Gonzalez, who, by the way, congratulations, NFL Rookie of the Month. That was announced earlier today. Do you think we'll see a heavy dose? Huh?
That's not a real award.
Will you stop? Give the guy some credit, will you?
I'm just telling you. We never talk about those awards because they're not. Nobody knows how those awards come up. It's the NFL Public Relations Department that comes up with them.
Give him credit, Greg. So
I said he's been great.
I know. Do you think we'll see a healthy dose of Gonzo on CeeDee Lamb Sunday?
I mean, I would assume so. I don't see why not. I mean, the way he's, like we said, his coverage is real on film. And I think CeeDee's really good. I think, he'll have, the way the Patriots like to do it is give him help over the top so the cornerback knows he can be more aggressive underneath. That's sort of what they did with A.J. Brown in week 1 and Tyreek Hill at times. If you have 3 deep safeties and you just have to, be underneath, it gives you a lot of confidence to play coverage. But yeah, I think they'll do that. And I think, what you brought up about the Cowboys and their offense is definitely key in this game. And it's one of the reasons why I think this is, a victory if not a very close game, is definitely in the Patriots' wheelhouse on Sunday. And that's because, Mike McCarthy, he is a big sort of macho. He's a macho Pittsburgh guy, and he'll even admit that. And he grew up watching the Steelers, grew up a Steelers fan. And, while he's West Coast, like his ideal game print is, ball control, dominate time of possession, run the ball, high percentage completion. Like that's what he wants. And, that's music to the Patriots' ear. I mean, they're not one of these teams, one of these newfangled offenses that is, going to spread you out and have a lot of motion and a lot of speed. And he's not going to do any of that stuff. It's it's very boring. It's a lot of, quick slants or deeper slants or, over-unders. Like it's basic stuff. So I think the Patriots will be dialed down on that. But I do think that, the way these two teams are very similar in how they drive the football. Dallas might have more talent. But I think that they are both similar in that it's 4 or 5 yards at a time, march down. Like you said, Dallas can get into the red zone. The Patriots, there's like a barrier at like the 38-yard line that they can't get beyond. After the first 5 or 6 plays are good, and then they disintegrate with the grenade offense. But yeah, very similar offenses from that point of view.
All right, last thing before we get to the FanDuel line and our thoughts. Cowboys run game, you mentioned it, you talked about it. They ran it effectively last week. The Patriots have had some good moments and some not good moments against the run this year. Devon Godchow, question mark, obviously. Can the Patriots front deal with this Cowboys run game?
It's one of the questions for this game. I'm not sure. I mean, it depends on if Godchow's out there. How motivated is he? I mean, how effective is he? I mean, when he's on his game and he wants to defend the run and be the best run defender on the field, he can do it. He just doesn't always do it. If he's not out there, he's not 100%, and, maybe they use him more in just like short yardage situations, what have you. It's basically, Lawrence Guy and Christian Barmore. Now, Barmore played really well last week. Maybe he's making progress against the run. We'll see. This will be a big test of that, whether he can become a 3-down lineman in this league. Outside of that, I don't know what they're going to do. I mean, Dietrich Wise, are you going to kick him inside and give him Ekawali snaps? Wise gets washed out against the run. Keon White, is he ready to play sort of 3 technique? I don't know. I like him more on the edge, kicking some ass out there. Of an offensive tackle. I think he's really good at that, and I like what I see out of him there. But I think it's going to have to be a big linebacker game because I don't think the Patriots are going to be great on the defensive interior. So Juwan Bentley, who played tremendous last week, is going to have to do that again. They're going to need more out of Jelani Tavai, who he's played fine, but he hasn't been much of a factor early. So it's definitely if Godchow's not out there and he's not, what Belichick thinks he is as one of the best defensive tackles in the league. If he's not that guy this week, it's everybody else is going to have to raise their level up a bit.
All right, check him out over at BSJ. Mike Giardi, Greg, tag team and Patriots coverage, $50 for the year. They do a great job. You don't want to miss out. Accurate reporting. Again, they just do great work. They look at film and all of that stuff. If you're into it, again, BSJ, $50 a year. This episode brought to you by FanDuel, the exclusive wagering partner of the CLNS Media Network. New customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. Greg, the FanDuel line this week, Cowboys -6.5. The over-under is 43.5.
So it was 7 at least. It might have opened up higher. So it's inching down. A couple things, some of the things that we've already talked about. Like, I think the way Dallas plays is conducive to the Patriots keeping this game close throughout, as long as they don't turn the ball over. I think they're putting an emphasis on that, and if they do that, I think they stay certainly within our arm's length of the Cowboys. Some other things I was looking at. So the official for this game is, and I'm not a big guy on this, but I decided to look at this. So Scott Novak is the referee. for this game. A couple of key stats from Sharp Football Analysis. Let's see. So, home teams with Novak are a league worst 7-12 against the spread last season. There also Novak was 11-5 under in 2022, with his games combining for an NFL low 38.5 points. Novak is 2-1. He officiated the Cowboys versus Patriots in Week 12 of 2019. That was a 13-9 home win for the Patriots, who were 5.5-point favorites. So I think that and also they call more. His crew calls more penalties on the home team. It's not huge, but there's enough there. So you combine the Dallas offensive line injuries, which I think are real, and help boost an undermanned Patriots defensive front, and neutralizes the Dallas running game a little bit. I think that Bill O'Brien will have things up his sleeve. I think that the Cowboys can't run away from the Patriots. The Patriots will just, keep a lid on them. I don't know who I'm going to pick. I certainly like the Patriots to cover the point spread, and I also like the under in this game.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty much on the same page as you. I'm not ready quite to give my pick and the exact score, what I think it could be, but I feel the same way. I mean, I think both of these teams, they're not going to have a ton of possessions in this game. Can the Patriots get to the red zone? Can the Cowboys score when they get to the red zone? How much time is taken to get there, especially by Dallas? And I think the defense for Dallas is trying to figure itself out without Trevon Diggs. I think, it's still kind of early in the process, and they could still be a little confused every once in a while. I would certainly anticipate Bill O'Brien to take advantage of some of the communication in the secondary. And, Dallas has played the most man coverage in the NFL this year, according to Pro Football Focus. If they play a lot of man on Sunday, then that's when you bust out the bunch formations and try to confuse those guys. I think the Patriots stay within the 6.5. The over-under is kind of killing me because I keep looking at this and just feel like it's almost like a 23-20 game, and that's right at 43, and it's 43.5. But I wouldn't be super confident in putting this money down on this, but I would say I would go with the under as well. So I think the Patriots will cover, and I will also go with the under on this game Sunday. We'll see if we're right. Everybody enjoy the game on Sunday. He's Greg. I'm Nick. We'll be back early next week to recap this game. Until then, have a great weekend.
The CLNS Media Network is powered by FanDuel. Sign up at FanDuel.com/Boston and get in on the action with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose.